We can say I'm not coming back because it's not this version of us that's deciding it, right? It's not me and my personality harumphing and getting aggravated at all of the repeat lessons and frustrations. Our soul will decide that. And I believe our soul will decide that with our team, our spirit guide team.
Stephanie Banks, welcome to Passion Harvest. Really, really, really looking forward to our conversation today. Welcome. I'm honored to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Luisa. It's my honor as well.
I thank you. I love all the work you do, but let's get started. I'd like to start with channeling. You're the most incredible channeler, and how it came to you. From what I understand, you began with trying to communicate with the soul of your mother.
That's right. Yeah, I found some difficulty during my mother's journey with dementia. And as I tried all of the traditional routes to stay connected with her, I found that verbal communication was becoming more difficult. She was also not understanding things very easily. And we were both getting frustrated. So I had a friend at the time who was a very, very gifted channeler, meaning that she could connect on the soul level with anyone here on the planet. And I'm only using past tense because she's now on the other side, but she helps me with all of my channelings now from that perspective. And I asked her if she would help me connect with my mom's soul because what I really wanted was as healthy a relationship as possible. I wanted to understand what my mom needed from me. I also wanted to understand how I could tend to myself during that intense period of years, because my mom actually had dementia for about 15 years. And she channeled her soul. I learned all that I wanted to know and then some. And I realized if we can do this for this type of relationship, I wonder where else in my life this could apply. And so I started to take classes from very gifted mediums and psychics and read everything I could and learn some enough strategies and techniques to be able to open this for myself. And now I teach others how to do it as well.
Wonderful, and wonderful that you could connect, and you not only connect with uh, humans or people or us that have transitioned, but spirit guides, Gaia, elemental beings. What, just to understand, when you were connecting with your mother or when you connect with all these light beings of light, what is the soul? What's the difference?
Oh, so what I'm coming to understand now is that it's all one beautiful connected thing. So our minds do like to have different labels and categories for things. So I'll tell you from that perspective, but keep in mind that it's really all spirit. And so, but then we'll just take it and put it into some categories because that will make our brains happy. In my understanding, the soul is the student aspect of ourselves that comes here for many, many lifetimes to experience a variety of things, relationships, and experiences, I'll just say, in order to grow closer and get closer to perfect love, agape, divine love, our own divinity. And along with that, just like being a student, we have some lessons that are really fun and joyful, and then we have some that aren't. And it tends to be the ones that aren't easy that we do our greatest growth. And we do a lot of our growth as souls within the context of our relationships, I believe. Spirit is that divine spark within each of us. It doesn't have any heavy history. It doesn't carry the memories of lifetimes past like the soul does. So it's pure light, the purest, highest vibration. And we use that to stay in constant connection with with the divine energy that we're made of, that surrounds us, that's in each one of us, in all living beings, and in essence that's around. So the soul is more complicated, it has more history, the spirit is pure light and divine brightness. That's how I have learned to characterize them.
Thank you for clarifying. So the spirit, I mean, it can be called many words. One could call it God or the center of
Right.
the universe. There's so many words for that which we are part of. So I'm talking in my human terms here. The soul almost observes. I mean, you spoke about suffering. No one wants that, but it is our greatest growth. The soul doesn't suffer. It watches, and it's almost observing and learning. Is that correct?
That's how I think of it. Yeah, the soul is actually what's calling in those hard
Oh
experiences.
no.
I mean, no, our souls know what they're doing. And we have free will, so we don't how we could go, away from that, move away from that. We can be in resistance, we can avoid, but what I like to tell people is we're probably just going to come back again and do it, so might as well get it done now. If if we have stuff to work on and work out and work through, and all of us do, embrace it. If you have the capacity now, if you have the resources, some people do not, I understand. But yeah, it's the soul that's saying, yeah, I'm going to move closer to this relationship, even though I might get burned, even though it might be painful, even though I'll have to experience loss and grief, because those are the things that grow us and they expand our understanding of ourselves, and they expand our ability to love better and more.
Always a return to love. And I guess would this relate to when you talk about our soul path? People talk about our soul path on multiple incarnations. Is this the the soul path?
Yeah, I think so. Although I don't, a lot of people will say in their sessions, can you tell me what my soul path is? And the thing is that is that first of all is not my job to tell anybody. That's for our own self-discovery. And so we can unfold our soul path through a variety of pathways. And we kind of decide that as we go, which is where our free will comes into play. So I might opt out of certain experiences because in those moments I don't feel equipped or desiring to have them, but I will have more opportunities. My soul will continue to call in more adventures and make things maybe a little bit more enticing as we go along so that I can address whatever needs to be healed within myself or whatever offering I am here to express. But our soul's path is really the conglomerate of our experiences and our acknowledgments and our willingness to embark on this great, beautiful journey on this amazing planet.
I've found in my life, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but you know, in our lives, we're all going to experience conflict, contrast, suffering. And it's always a return to love. Is there a way we can almost flow with it and not suffer so much?
Hmm. I think suffering is always an option. So
A
that would
choice.
Yes, exactly. So that would suggest that we can opt not to look at things in the way that creates suffering for ourselves. I mean, if we look at the concept of grief,
Mm.
grief is universal. It's the price we pay for loving something dearly. And what a blessing to be able to love something or someone dearly in this embodied experience. But grief doesn't have to include suffering. It's just it's an emotional state. It's a giving over of what is true. It's part of the beauty and richness of the human journey. So I think a lot of the suffering that we personally experience and or that we inflict on others is, if with a reframe and an attending to our behaviors and our inner work, we can actually not view any of that as suffering, but just as part of, as you say, the soul's journey, part of what we're here to, the richness of what we're here to experience.
One of my questions, I guess I like to ask this often, why are we here? And I think you kind of answered it. Do you mind just digging that out a little bit more? Why are we here? And sorry, one more question. So many people say, I'm never coming back. I don't want to do this earth life
Hmm.
again. That was two
I-
questions.
Well, to start with the last one first, I have been guilty of saying that myself. It's hard here. It's very dense. It's very intense for those of us that identify as highly sensitive, empathic beings. We're always at risk of absorbing what's not ours, of suffering greater than necessary, until we learn the boundaries that are healthy and necessary to move about in our bodies and in our fields without giving, granting access to energy or beings that we really don't want within that field. So um, we can say I'm not coming back because it's not this version of us that's deciding it, right? It's not me and my personality harumphing and getting aggravated at all of the repeat lessons and frustrations. Our soul will decide that. And I believe our soul will decide that with our team, our spirit guide team, God, source, energy, love, creator, whatever you call that. So later, we get to ultimately decide that later. And we will have a much different perspective when we're ready to decide that, because we will have completed this incarnation and been able to look back upon all the others as well. And then we can properly assess, do we want to come back again? And sometimes we come back as an offering to others. Sometimes we're beckoned back, specifically invited to join other soul groups to accomplish certain things. So that's what I will say about that. And then what was the first part? Oh, what are we here for? We're here to love. We're here to love. We're here how to learn to truly love unconditionally and wholeheartedly, and without all this perceived need for self-protection.
I guess my next question is, how can we live our happiest life, a life filled with joy, the highest path of alignment?
That's such an individual pursuit. I can tell you what creates joy for me, and what I tend to guide people to do if you're looking for joy. And I'll say joy because happiness I find to be very elusive. And, our culture would have us chasing happiness in the form of things to buy or the material world. Joy, though, is an inner experience, an inner expression of our light, of our divinity. And so I encourage people to create a list of 25 or more things that invoke joy within them. And that might sound like a lot, but once you get rolling, you can fill pages with it. Like I see a little animal being that just walked across your screen. I would bet you money that that animal being creates joy for you. Am I right?
Yes.
Exactly. So that's at the top of my list, is my connection to animals and to nature and my children, which are sometimes like animals and very connected to their nature. Sometimes often the greatest source of joy for me is just that, the natural world and animals. Also on my list are things that just are very special to me, people in my life that I love having conversations with that create joy. Dark chocolate is always at the top of my list. There's joy for me in dark chocolate. Nourishing foods, cooking for and feeding others creates a lot of joy for me. So we all have different things that light us up, but if you want a recipe for experiencing joy, it's to engage in those things that do create light within you, and to do them regularly and as often as you possibly can. Because what we learn as we um, advance in chronological age is that people don't do that for you. We need to actually do that for ourselves. It's a way of honoring our soul, our spirit, our connection to all life. And when I am in my joy, I'm going to light you up and everyone else around me, and vice versa.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's a great way to explain it. It doesn't come from things, possessions. That brings happiness for a moment, but it's not long lasting. It's very
Yeah,
true. It does help, but it's not, it doesn't bring joy. Happiness is related to something.
right.
And if
Yes.
that
And
something goes, then the happiness is gone.
exactly. And a lot of the wealthiest people in the world are the most unhappy. So it's not related to wealth, even though again, culture and marketing would have us believe otherwise. But I think most of us know that the emptiness that we can feel when we think that thing is really important, we finally have enough resources to purchase it or obtain it. And then it's like, well, yeah, there it is. What's next? There's always a what's next when you're talking about acquisition for the purpose of happiness or joy. But joy is an inner light, and yeah, you can see me and my joy in my garden when I'm rolling around on the floor with my dogs, when I'm giggling, with my kids, when I'm having a beautiful cup of tea with a dear sister friend.
You spoke before about in our, as we term in our humanists, our chronological order, and it just brings me to the concept of time. Is there really time, or is everything happening now?
I wish I knew the answer to that. Um, Here we have time because we invented it, just
Mhm.
like we have money because we invented it. But so we subscribe to that idea and we measure things, and I'm sure glad that we do because my linear mind needs it, as do most other people. But in the spirit world, no, there isn't a time frame, a delineation of time. It is just all the present moment. And then you can get into like parallel time and quantum, jumping and all sorts of things that absolutely blow my mind that I am not expert on. So please don't ask me questions about them. But we can really stretch this. There's so much that we don't
Yes.
fully know and understand.
I'll move on to channeling. Can anyone channel?
Yes. Yes, it's our birthright. It's something we are all born with. In fact, children are very clear channels. If they have not received messages of fear around that, then they will tell you about beings that they are seeing in the corners of the room. They will tell you about dreams that they've had or daydreams that they have had. They will talk to other energies that are around. If they have deceased grandparents or loved ones, it's not uncommon for kids to say, "Oh yeah, I was just with grandma yesterday. She showed me this or talked to me about that." So we can nurture this in children. I really encourage us to do so. It's their natural state. It's also our natural state. We've just come out of it because somewhere along the line, we've learned that it's not acceptable or that makes other people uncomfortable or there's something to be afraid of with regards to it. But I know if I can learn to channel at this point in my life, anyone can learn to channel. There really isn't anything that would be missing if you have an interest and a desire and you're willing to put in the practice and the work, you can get really clear and really good at channeling.
What, and I know you do teach this, but what, for those of the audience that just are starting out or interested, what are your tools or top tips to start channeling or connecting perhaps with their spirit guides or loved ones on the other side?
Well, I like to start teaching people how to use a pendulum. So it's not that you have to be good at it. In fact, I don't know that I'm particularly good at it, but I find that many of us like to hold a tool in our hands or something tactile that's really enjoyable. This pendulum brings me joy because it's got all the colors, the chakras. Someone really special made it. And so I'm holding this joyful tool and I'm able to learn how to ask yes and no questions. I can tune into, say, my higher self and ask questions to come through the pendulum from the perspective of my higher self, or I might ask for a spirit guide or a particular loving ancestor. This is foundational, I find, not because, again, you have to be good at it in order to be a good channel, but because it's a really nice entry point. And when people start to see their pendulum moving and they're really not moving it, that point is delightful. That's my favorite thing, my favorite part of teaching it. So that's where I start when I'm teaching classes quite often. But we don't have to go there. What's necessary to be a clear channel is to do the inner work. So that does include meditation, but there are many different forms of meditation, and you don't have to be a good meditator to be a clear channel. I'm not a great meditator. Sometimes I go kicking and screaming. Oftentimes I have nothing but one thought after another for the whole time I'm meditating. But just showing up to it is the point. Just being open is what that's about. And if your self-care is crappy, then your connection is likely going to be noisy. So I do take my self-care, my bodacious self-care seriously. And I make sure I'm having fun and I make sure I'm nourished, body, mind, spirit, soul, heart, all of it. And I make sure that I'm getting the sleep that I need. That's essential. So we have these foundational, biological needs, physiological needs, spiritual needs that need to be addressed if one is going to be a very clear channel, in my opinion.
And that
You're
would also
still on.
relate to connecting with spirit guides and connecting. Many people say, well, I can't tap into my intuition. That would all be related.
Yes. Yes. So when I'm channeling, it's coming from a place of intuition. That's why when I said we're born with it, I'm talking about that sixth sense, our intuitive sense. We all have it, but a small portion of the population actually uses it. And most people that I know don't trust their own intuition. So this thing of channeling, I like to say 90% of it is trusting yourself that what's coming through is actually coming through and you can lean into it and trust it and believe yourself.
And not just making it up, because that could often be a big part of it. And that also connecting with loved ones as well. How do we tell the difference between our intuition and perhaps the egoic mind? That
Mm.
that can be challenging.
Yeah. What kind of mind did you say?
The egoic ego, the
Oh, the
ego.
egoic mind. Yeah. Well, they have a totally different resonance, right? So when we are in our deep knowing, there is a subtlety that is there. It's a softness, it's an openness. Some people experience it as a warmth, but there's just, ah, and when we are in the ego mind, there is generally speaking a constriction, a grasping, a tightness. Things might be loud and shouty, distracting, sometimes fear creating. So when you get really good at discernment, and this is a very important aspect of channeling, discerning what energy, one, you want to call in, what it feels like, what you're willing to experience. And when you get good at discerning that, you can just choose, well, this feels fearful and constricted and overwhelming. No, not that. I'm going to take a break from this so that I don't add more to the energy, because we actually can get into this entire cycle with it where we add more to it. And then the voice of ego gets even more dug in and we start to believe what the egoic thoughts are saying or creating. So the subtlety of our inner knowing, of our attunement with spirit, of our connection to our soul is what we are going for. And each time we get there, we can feel it. We can attune ourselves to be able to sense that more clearly. And then I say, celebrate the heck out of it. Because whatever, again, joy, right? Add joy to that. Wow, I just got this intuitive knowing and I trust myself and I'm going to move in that direction and we'll see what unfolds. Or if you share something that you have, something intuitive with a dear close friend or family member and it's something that resonates with them, celebrate that. Lots of celebration. It will bring about more of your connection that way. That's how we signal spirit. I like this, I don't like that.
Lovely way of explaining it. And an intuition, I guess, is soft and gentle. When you're angry and making decisions, it's probably not the intuition. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's not to say you have to ignore it either, because our emotions are great teachers and they have very important information. But don't sit down to channel when you're pissed off. That's actually the the least ideal time to do
Wrong
that.
energy.
Yeah,
I just want to backtrack to the pendulum, and I think they're wonderful. Do you mind just showing the audience how to use it?
sure.
What do you do?
Yeah. So you want to be have a flat surface like a table that you're sitting at because you want your elbow to be well supported. And I hold mine between my pointer finger and my thumb, and I hold it, I'm just going to keep it in the screen, but really like an inch above. This is my letter board. It's not a Ouija board. A lot of people see this and they get scared because of what Ouija boards have meant to them in their childhood. It's just letters on a board and numbers. And so I have used this to say, may I have the name of a spirit guide or ancestor that's here with me right now to support me in serving the highest good. And then here's the thing about using a pendulum. You can see that it already, mine gets a lot of movement. You have to be so patient in this process. I'm not going to do it and wait for the letters in our time together because that's just not going to fill any of the airspace. But if you wait, your pen and you practice, your pendulum will go to the first letter. And then you can hold it over the first letter and say, okay, is it S? And it can circle yes or no. And then you come back to the middle and you say, may I have the second letter in the name, please? And then you wait and it will go to the second letter. So that's an example of how to use this letter board, which I also teach. And in terms of just simple yes and no questions, you can learn your yes and no response. For me, it's a clockwise motion for yes, counterclockwise for no. That's the way that I teach it, but some people get up, straight up and down for yes and across for no. It just depends. You have to practice to build this. This is a relationship that you have with a pendulum, with your tool. And then you can ask yes and no questions. And I recommend you don't start with, should I marry Charlie? Or something that
Sorry.
you something that you have a very strong emotional attachment to. Start instead with something, and wording is everything, really. Will it serve me in the highest, will it serve my highest good to continue my current relationship as it is? That's just an example, just off the top of my head. If you get no, then you can ask follow-up questions. Will it serve my highest good to make changes to this relationship? Maybe you'll get a yes. Okay, can I please have the first letter of the first word of a change that will benefit my growth and expansion as a soul? It's all about how you ask the questions. And that's how you get the highest guidance that you can.
And you don't always get the answers you think you want.
You almost never do.
Oh, no. Okay.
Because if you want a certain answer, then you have attachment.
Yes.
And it is our attachments that are really messing us up. So when you sit down to work with a pendulum, there is a process. You'll want to clear your energy field. You'll want to have a ritual to invoke the highest vibrational frequency of integrity and love. There's a process to this. You don't just, and again, don't sit down with your pendulum when you're mad or when you just broke up with someone or when you're out of balance. This is a process of trusting. And when do you most trust yourself? Not when your emotions are amplified, but when you are balanced, when you are in harmony with rhythm, the rhythm of life, the rhythm of your spirit. Yeah.
Thank you. And with the numbers on that circle dial that you were using, can you also ask things like years or months or weeks with the
Mhm.
numbers? Oh, I
Of
love
course.
that.
Yeah. 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 There's really, I haven't come across anything that you cannot use a pendulum for. If you play around with the words and with the language, you can find a way to ask for exactly what you need. And it's quite exciting. It's really fun. And it doesn't mean that just because you get a certain answer, you have to act on it. You can just accept that as information.
I know, I'm just segueing on. I know you also connect with souls of animals or pets.
Yeah.
Do you mind just talking about that for a moment with the audience And we
Oh,
love our pets.
we do. Oh my gosh. And I'm completely obsessed with mine for sure. Oh, our animal friends are here as teachers and guides for us, I believe, and messengers, you know. So I like to tell people that when you are just out and about, if you notice a squirrel cross your path, a snake, a snail, like stop, really notice it, and then Google power animal snail and see what the significance is, or squirrel or alligator or whatever it is that's coming to you, because they are messengers. They're sent, I believe, by spirits, sometimes by souls and ancestors that we have known. I know my sweet, dear, precious father recently transitioned, and every single day I'm on a walk, I find another white feather every single day, sometimes multiple times in a day. So birds have always been a very strong connection for me. There is a cardinal that has visited my home ever since my mother died. She died 11 years ago. That male cardinal still comes to my window. Now, I don't know that their lifespan is that long, so maybe he tells his next of kin, this is the window you have to come visit when I pass. I don't know. But the natural world, boy, oh boy, is it something of a teacher for us. So I do love to channel from that aspect, because animal energy is pure positive. They are not hung up on things. They are not holding grudges. They are pure positive, loving energy. And they teach us how to love unconditionally, our companion animals. Um, and for me, I know that my soul is here to bring healing to plants and animals and humans alike. So I'm really, really connected to anything I can do that's in service to protecting and loving and bringing honor to all living beings, because we all belong here. There is not a hierarchy in my mind of one dominant creature. So I believe in stewardship and protecting and loving and honoring all the interconnected life that is here in all the many different forms. And I do love channeling animals. I've channeled horses and birds and dogs and cats and geese and trees and everything.
How wonderful. And well, I was just thinking about that. Trees, you connect with the spirit of the tree. What's that like? Because they're incredible beings.
They are. They are. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And they'll speak to anyone, by the way. It's not just me. And I know I'm not alone in my tree hugger-ness either, because everyone I talk to and I share I'm a tree hugger, they're like, oh, so am I. But so many are afraid to just fling their arms around a tree out on a hike in public. So trees have stories to tell us. Think about how much they have witnessed in their lifetimes. And then we look at like the ancient trees, the redwoods and the sequoias and the ones that have been around for so long. And there are trees that have been here for thousands of years. It's incredible. So when I channel trees, oftentimes they will remind me of what they've seen. And sometimes in the sharing of those stories, like what they've seen of the different types of humans that have lived nearby, or the different communities, or the life forms, it reconnects me each and every time to, oh yeah, we are really all one. We're all here just for a little spot of time, and then making room and space for other births and experiences. And it's profound. It's really profound. So we need to really care for our tree beings, our tree friends.
Yes, everything has beautiful energy in life. We can forget. Um, Stephanie, thank you so much. I guess my last question, I'll ask you if you want to share anything, but do you have any channeled messages or messages for humanity or the Passion Harvest audience?
Mm. I think the most important thing is to follow your curiosity. And that's kind of for many of us, it's a pattern interrupt to give ourselves a little space or time to do that. So if you're listening to this podcast or any of Luisa's beautiful podcasts, and there's a part of you that leans in a little bit and says, well, what if? what if I could believe that? What if I could experience that? What if that's for me? That's your curiosity talking. Lean in, learn more, follow the trail. It's what you're here for.
That was a beautiful final message.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to share that on with the Pattern Harvest audience that I haven't asked you? Oh, wait, where can people connect with you? I forgot to ask you that question. I'm sorry.
They can go to my website. It is soulinsight.com, or I'm on social media at Stephanie Intuitive Channel.
Wonderful. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. Wonderful, wonderful. I've really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
our conversation today.
I have to, Louisa. Thanks so much for all your
Thank
beautiful work
you.
in the world.
Bye.